Actually, more accurately for you, Ferdinand is still like in study mode.
Yeah.
Bunny's like, no, let's go play. Let's play. Let's go run.
And after 6 days, Matthew 17. Actually, I want to back up one thing. When we were dealing with Matthew 16 yesterday, and he says, pick up his cross and follow me. That's not the first time in the Gospel of Matthew Jesus mentions his cross. In Matthew 10:38, he says, those who do not carry their cross are not worthy to come after me. That's around the time when he was discussing with the 12 about their responsibilities to evangelize, to preach the kingdom, etc. Basically to notify people that the Messiah had come, even though he didn't come in the package that other people wanted him to come. And Jesus was setting the example for what would happen in Matthew 16 and Matthew 10, because he was the one that picked up his cross and followed the Lord repeatedly, even though he probably didn't like where it was headed. He knew it was headed, and he knew probably from a small child, his life was going to end in crucifixion as a criminal, as an insurrectionist against the Roman Empire, and he'd be falsely accused repeatedly. So he was setting the tone, so he had the right and what we call the earned authority to preach the message that he preached in both Matthew 10:38 and here in Matthew 16:24 through 28.
I'm sorry, is he here you're referring to Jesus or Peter?
Jesus.
Okay. Right.
Jesus, absolutely.
Thank you.
Good clarification, though. Jesus knew his life was going to end in crucifixion. Therefore, Jesus was setting the motif, and crucifixion was used for insurrectionists and rebels against the empire. So these were for federal crimes, as it were, and recognized and treated as though they were federal criminals against the state. I want that to hit you. It would be like you knew your life was going to end for my generation and my region where I grew up, Stark, Florida. I grew up 5 miles from where Ted Bundy was executed, Florida State Prison, Old Sparky. It'd be like somebody saying to me, pick up your electric chair and let's go. Pick up your death instrument. People born in this generation probably pick up your lethal injection and let's go. All 3 of them. Because there are 3 substances frequently used in lethal injections. If you were to talk to a Jew born during the 40s, it'd be pick up your gas chamber and follow me. Like, gang. Same thing with the Great Leap Forward in China. Pick up your firing squad and follow me. Pick up your factory where you're going to work to the bone, to death, and follow me. It's recognizing that you're willing to count the cost. And it's not just counting the cost in spiritual things that we need to learn how to count the cost and carry the cross. It's also in financial, fiscal, all kinds of social, relational aspects where we're picking up our cross so that a relationship can be brought to its fullness. You bear the stigma of somebody falsely accusing you so that you can win them to the Lord, maybe. Am I saying that we should be living in abusive situations? For those of you that know me and my wife, the answer to that is no. I'm not saying you stay in an abusive situation and just let somebody beat you down and you try to forgive them into the kingdom. Or a predatory boss, same thing. What I am saying is when the Lord is asking you to pay a specific cost and He has made that clear, not through oblique principle and we think, oh, I've got to be a doormat, but when He said, John, Sally, Pam, David, Arthur, Brian, whoever, I've got this specific cost for you, and your birthright is at the end of paying this cost. He's asking you to pay that cost, pay it. Consider it. Sit down. Do I have the resources to build this tower? Which of you, after having sat down to build the tower, he will not sit down and first count the cost, lest he should get halfway completed and not be able to finish, and a bunch of people walk by and say, "Oh, look, another Christian who cannot meet their engagements, who has no character, who's got all this vision but does not have any execution." We are running into this problem monotonously, where we have Christians who have vision, but they don't have the execution to match. You'll get to Matthew 17 and the glory thereof in a couple of videos or whatever the case, but this is one of those things that needs to come out. You must pick up the cross. You must count the cost, or else you're not considered worthy. And this is not something we earn. This is not a merit badge, as it were. This is tied directly to your design and to your birthright and to the thing or things that you were made to do, that if they don't get done, it will bring dishonor to you and dishonor to your family. You were made for this. Get after it. This is not a salvation issue, but this is a kingdom issue. We have enough lazy Christians who are so obsessed with whether or not they're saved and whether or not we should add things to salvation. And is David talking about works righteousness, that we do not ever think about, well, now that I'm saved, now what? What do I do? What does execution look like? Counting the cost. Doing what I was made to do so the kingdom is impacted. So the kingdom of darkness is torn down and the kingdom of God is built up. This is after the salvation issue, because that's settled. Now that that's settled, let's get busy. And, I know in the mercy season, we don't necessarily grind as much as we did previously in the ruler season. I will discuss what I mean by mercy season and ruler season in the next video, probably later today. But we ground and hustled and grind in the ruler season repeatedly. We do a little more gliding here in the mercy season, but there's still the need, because the mercy season pulls from the previous 6 seasons of church history, pulls resources into this season and uses them, including the aspect of there are times to hustle and grind. There are times to work with excellence and to rise to the occasion regardless of the opposition. Like Nehemiah, I fight the enemy, sword in one hand, and I build the wall, hammer in the other hand. And the description of the building of the wall is monotonous. Latches and bolts and doors, and latches and bolts and doors, and this gate and that gate were built with latches and bolts and doors. And you see the systematic building of something with excellence. The tabernacle is another dynamic, but it was built with ruler excellence. For those who wonder what I mean by ruler, Romans 12, 6 through 8 is the 6th of the 7 redemptive gifts, also called in the NIV as the gift of administration, although those are inadequate terms. And I'll get into that in another video. But my dynamic that I want to hit here is, are we not just obsessed with salvation? Are we going to move into the process of this relationship impacting the kingdom as sons, which involves us building and fighting? It might require some sweat equity and some blood and some tears. Pam, do you have something to add?
I think it also, clearly discipleship is a key part to that. You know, and in the mercy season, we're dealing a lot more with relationships, you know, beyond our salvation. You know, are we learning the principles? Are we growing in the principles? Are we applying the principles? Are we seeking God first? Are we working in our relationship with God, like actually talking to him, listening to him, growing in that, and then he'll let him lead you, let him guide you. You know, he's got things for you to do. In this season, a lot more of it's going to come from relationship. You know, you know, who are the people around you that you can impact? You know, and you know, you may or may not lead them to Christ, but you are having an impact on them toward the kingdom or away from the kingdom with your actions, with your words, with your attitudes. People are watching. And, you know, assessing, you know, the nature of God often by watching our nature. Are we reflecting him well? You know, are we doing the things that we should be doing? Do we have the character and the integrity that we need? You know, and of course there are definitely things. Ephesians, and I think it's 2:8 and 9, talk about the works that God prepared for us. He has definitely got specific things for us to be doing. And, you know, we're not going to know what those are if we're not listening to him, if we don't have our eyes on him, if we're not watching him, if we're not following and putting principles together and using the raw materials and building things together. So there are practical ways to walk this out. I think a really important aspect of this is to not think about, you know, well, I go to church on Sunday mornings and maybe you go to church on Wednesday night. God isn't just in the church. God is in your shower and your work day and your playtime and when you're watching TV and when you're sleeping. God is in every aspect of your life. Is your life reflective of that? You know, are you investing in that relationship? It's the most important relationship you have to invest in. You know, invest in it. It's worth it. Count the cost. You know, when we get on board, it's not, you know, he doesn't say, hey, sign up for 2 hours of church on Sunday morning. You can have the rest of the week. That's not the cost he's asking us to count. You know, he really wants our in and out in our entire day and our entire week and our entire month. And, you know, our planning should include and revolve around him, not, you know, we make all our plans and go, okay, God bless them. That's just not, that's not a realistic view of our relationship.
Hand God our filled out form. No, you don't have to apologize. Hand God our filled out form, and it just say sign on the bottom, God.
Yeah. So, you know, and so these are the ways that we can come up higher, and walk it out better and honor him. And, you know, really, we want to impact the kingdom of God, you know, and we want to impact the kingdom of darkness, and, you know, to fight it back, you know, not just let it come and consume.
Yeah. You good, hon? You got what you need to say out? I said more. I know. You could preach on this all day, and I could listen to you all day.
I just think there's a really good example of how the kingdom of darkness spreads. If you look at what's going on, and I am not an expert. I don't know everything about this coronavirus thing, and I'm really not looking to deal with that. But it's a wonderful example of how the kingdom of darkness can suddenly spread. We've got a virus which is apparently very similar to a flu virus, and, you know, should be taken seriously, just like the flu virus should be taken seriously. You know, lots and lots of people die of the flu. And lots of people have died of this coronavirus, although not nearly as many as have died of the flu. As I understand it from the statistics I've read, again, I'm not an expert, but you think about the worldwide panic right now of this thing spreading, and you have definitely seen spread. It's a really good example of how one thing can spread to another, and all of a sudden things are like shutting down. You know, we've canceled the NBA season. We've canceled the March Madness.
Spring's training for baseball is canceled.
Yeah. Okay, spring training for baseball. Disney's closed starting Sunday or whatever. You know, my friends went to a concert last night, checked on the concert earlier in the day. The concert was still on. They got there. The governor said no more gatherings, and the concert got closed. And like no notice. And these things are happening now.
Which state?
It's Connecticut.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, Is it a proper response? I don't know, but it surely is a response. And all of a sudden, the effect of this virus, and we have tons of contagious things going on in this country and every other country, but this one thing has had the impact of shutting everything down. So it's this spread of, we can call that the kingdom of darkness. When it takes root and happens, it can happen broadly. We're not even close to seeing the end of this thing. And it's a little frightening when I look at it from an economic perspective, because all these big venues are shutting down for a season. That, so that impacts obviously the venue. It impacts every person who's worked for the venue, all the vendors that supply for the venue, any hotels and air travel, and that's probably crippling right now. Air travel, cruise lines have started shutting down. So it's not just these big businesses that are going to hurt from it. We are all going to financially feel this impact, because as people lose their job, you don't get paid when you lose your job mostly, and so then they can't buy food, and now we've got people that can't pay their rent, and we've got so the financial impact is going to hit regular normal people like us, and that's scary. And so you've got this broad sweeping coronavirus coming in and really consuming our economy and policy and self-quarantine, and our borders are shutting down. And I've got several people that have reached out to say, like, I'm supposed to come back in the country today, and I don't know if they're going to let me in, or I'm supposed to come in Saturday, and I'm coming in from overseas, and what's going on? And, so be in prayer about this thing. But this is what I'm talking about. It's the kingdom of darkness. If you think about the kingdom of darkness like this coronavirus thing, it's coming in, it's consuming, it's spreading. There's a lot of fear going on, and there's what can be done to push it back. So I'm making an illustration. I'm not talking specifically about the coronavirus. I'm making an illustration on, you can see the power of the kingdom of darkness coming in unchecked by what this coronavirus response is doing, where there's this huge unchecked response. And so the illustration is, we need to be, in counting the cost, we need to be standing up against the darkness and saying, okay, I want to further the kingdom of God, and I want to stop the spread of the kingdom of darkness. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm absolutely not talking about the coronavirus. I'm just using it as an illustration. So, thanks.
The other thing that I talked about, and I actually posted about this on my blog, gang, I believe yesterday, was this dynamic of spiritual napalm. And what's happened is, we've got this quote-unquote literal plague, and now we've got a spiritual plague of fear that's just gripped people, and it's caused, we got this little bit of truth. The coronavirus can hurt you, or whatever the case, just like a flu virus can hurt you, or whatever the case. And now we've got this fear that just leeches on, sticks, and burns. We obsess over what the 24-hour news channels are saying. We just suck in like a vacuum whatever the news channels are saying, whatever your news persuasion is. I'm a libertarian because I don't like any of them, so they've all got issues. We just suck it in, and we suck in whatever strongholds those networks have. And on top of that, we've got this stronghold of fear that's been so nastily empowered that we're not even thinking straight. Whether it's a run on toilet paper, hand sanitizer, or whatever else. Gang. Fear. Governor Tarkin in Star Wars said, fear will keep the local governments in check and control. Fear of this battle station. Gang, the writing is on the wall. We're dealing with a spirit of fear, and God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind or self-discipline, meaning we need to each go before the King of Kings, the Father of lights, from whom every good and perfect gift comes, and say, okay, Lord, how do you want me to respond? Not, should I be listening to Rupert Murdoch or Ted Turner and what their news channels say, because they're engaging in a fight anyway. Rupert Murdoch founded Fox News Channel so that he could go after and conduct his feud with Ted Turner in the news arena. Like, gang, are we not seeing this? You know, I don't sacrifice my life on the altar of the Fox News Channel or News Corporation or anything Ted Turner does or anything any of the other news channels do. I don't get my news from the news. I get my news from the King. I get my response as an ambassador, as a Christos Apostolos, an apostle of Christ. I get my marching orders from him as his apostolic reality. The apostolicity of the church is rooted in whether or not we are actually being sent from the King with a specific message. I should not be sent as an apostle of Fox News or of CNN or of MSNBC or of any other news outlet. Apostle of Christ, not apostle of the news network. My responsibility is to take my marching orders from him. If I read the newspaper, fine, but it's got to be in the context and the frame of my relationship with the King, which takes precedence over the news. You know, pretending like fear is wisdom. No. There's a difference. Brother and sister, discern the difference. Hear what the Lord wants to say to you and what he has for you. And be wise as serpents and be innocent as doves. Matthew 10:16, like we said several weeks back. Because we're being sent out as sheep among wolves. It can be a Republican and a Democrat, and the wolf is just changed his clothes. It can be an independent, and the wolf has still changed the clothes. The socialists, the green, the libertarians, the communists, the Nazis. It doesn't matter. It's the whole same package. Our responsibility is to be sons of the kingdom of light. Impacting this world, reconciling all things to the Lord, Romans 8, because the whole creation is groaning, waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God. Romans 8, 17 through 29. Our responsibility is to read, hear, listen. What does he want us to do? How does he want us to impact? What is our job and our part? Picking up our cross. What does that look like? What is your cross? What is your death instrument? And for those who are descendants of American Indian tribes like me, it's pick up your U.S. Army regiment and follow me. We bless you with peace and life and truth. And we bless you to hear from the King and to know what your cross is, gang. And we love you deeply. Be blessed.